Kia ora and welcome everyone to our fourth webinar to date. My name is Claire Barber and I am a Teaching and Learning Specialist with Promethean here in the Australia and New Zealand region. Today we are tackling the digital curriculum with a specific focus on years 0 to 4 or foundation to 4. Here is our agenda today. Now it may look quite brief, but as usual, I've had great difficulty in culling down the amount of ideas and examples I want to throw at you in order to fit into a reasonable time frame. In particular, I know that the digital curriculum is a very hot topic and I had literally thousands of ideas. So what I've decided to do is to record this webinar in 2 parts so that I can include more examples for people. All right, so today I'm going to be quite obviously and frequently referencing the Australian Digital Technologies Curriculum, but I want to take a moment to reassure our New Zealand teachers that all the ideas and examples shown here today are just as relevant to the New Zealand curriculum. To put everyone on the same page, in very simplistic terms, in New Zealand, the technology components or skills or strands sit holistically within the subject areas, as it used to be with the Australian curriculum. However, Australia has now created a separate curriculum, and as I said before, there's quite a buzz about it over here. So today, I am going to be trying to directly link the ideas I'm showing to this new digital technologies curriculum for our Aussie participants. And Kiwi participants, you may just relax and absorb the ideas, knowing that they also fit in beautifully with your key learning areas and key competencies too. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I did have trouble narrowing down the ideas that I wanted to include today. There are literally dozens of ideas I could have shown for nearly all of the learning outcomes for how Promethean products fit in with this curriculum. So I had to use some parameters for culling them. This quote is from an introduction to the Digital Technologies Curriculum. Many of you may have also watched an introduction video from a Kara like me on YouTube, but this particular quote struck a chord with me because in essence it's what I wanted to make sure I did today. I wanted to cover a range of subject areas. I wanted to try to promote a range of skills that are transferable, and I wanted to try to ensure that the ideas were as relevant as possible or as personal as possible to students' lives. In addition to this, I also wanted to ensure I addressed key concepts of the digital technologies curriculum, in particular the deeper thinking elements of abstraction and data. And if you're wondering what abstraction is, it's about dealing with ideas rather than events. And of course, the Akara people tell us over here, these little bullet points, that this curriculum is holistic and collaborative and is about communication and creativity. So of course, I've tried to embrace these elements also in the examples I've picked to share with you today. Now, digital technologies curriculum is a little bit of a mouthful to say at high speed, so we'll be referring to it as the DTC from now on. I'm sorry to use an acronym, but it's just a lot easier. All right, so before we get into the nitty-gritty, I also feel I need to touch on something else. This is what I call the incidentals, the things that are so obvious that I nearly missed mentioning them. I nearly left them out. Let me pull up some learning objectives or learning outcomes from the DTC here to help me explain. All right, so if we're reading the, let's grab my highlighter, if we're reading the learning outcome here, all right, recognize and explore digital systems, hardware and software components for a purpose. And things like playing with, exploring, recognizing and using hardware and software. All right. Let's get rid of that one. That was foundation to year 2. Here's years 3 and 4. All right. And this time round, we've got identify and explore a range of digital systems with peripheral devices for different purposes, blah, blah, blah. Look at this first level descriptor. Okay. By definition, if you simply, in other words, turn on your Promethean interactive whiteboard or your Active Panel Touch, and you allow students to interact with any kind of software on it that you have a license for, I will add, you will technically tick the boxes of those learning objectives. All right? Now, as teachers, however, I am sure we all care a lot about the quality and the depth of the learning involved, and so that is why we are all here today, to learn how we can promote that. And in particular, we're going to be looking at how we can use the ActivInspire software, some of the tools and the capabilities of the ActivInspire software to provide students with the opportunity of this quality learning and deeper thinking. Now, excuse me, by using the tools and the capabilities of the software today, we will find that we will also be incidentally allowing opportunity for those learning outcomes to occur. Okay, so that aside, let's get started. Okay, I am kicking us off today with some graphing ideas, mainly so that I can show you all right from the beginning that yes, everything we are doing is actually transferable. So here we have our LO from the digital curriculum for foundation or year 0 to year 2. And over here we have the content descriptors. All right. Okay. Yes, I could have done an activity for each and every one of these, but I've just picked out the 4 which I thought most strongly related to the graphic activities. Now, looking at this page, you could be forgiven for thinking that you are in fact looking at a maths curriculum. New Zealand teachers, note please the top content descriptor here, this top box, all right? If I head out to this link up here, which will take me to a unit of work from New Zealand Maths for the same age group. Oops, try again. Oh look, I like trucks. If I scroll down a little bit here, I know it's very tiny text. Let me paraphrase it for you. It is a unit about gathering, sorting and displaying objects or data like favourite toys. It's almost a bit like they've borrowed the idea straight from you, New Zealand, a little bit like Pavlova or Farlap. All right, and if I was to go to the Australian mathematics curriculum, all right, you're going to see, again, very, very similar learning outcomes or learning objectives and content descriptors there. All right, so this particular learning outcome or learning objective from the DTC also links very nicely with mathematics in both New Zealand and in Australia. Now, I've just popped out on the Aussie Maths curriculum to the work samples or portfolio of work samples, just so we can take a quick look at the type of activities that the curriculum is suggesting for maths, and you're going to see an overlap with what we're doing today. Basically, they're talking about the students putting forward questions for a survey and gathering the data and then graphing the data as well, or displaying the data. Okay, so without further ado, we're just going to pop to actually the years 3 and 4 and have a quick look. And here we've got a couple of LOs in the year 3 and 4 category for the Digital Technologies Curriculum, or the DTC. And once again, you will see that they're very mathsy. Oops, let me just move my toolbox over here for you. All right, these ones in particular. Okay, so let's take a look at our ideas here. All right, so posing questions or collecting the data for our survey. A few ideas for you. With young children, it's probably going to be all about the concrete. So you might have asked them, like in the I Like Trucks unit, you might have asked them to bring in a favourite toy from home, or they might have chosen a favourite toy or game from the classroom equipment. So how then do you keep that concrete material in their hand and use your digital curriculum? Well, you might take pictures of the toys, all right, photos of them. So you take a digital camera, you snapshot them, you then take the images from the camera and you pop them into your flip chart page. Now, if you were with us for the first webinar, you'll remember that I went through using our desktop toolbar or toolbox, which is this icon up here. Hopefully you can see I've highlighted that. It's the blue screen with the crossed tools on it there. And when I click on it, it takes me out to my desktop, all right? And I get a round toolbar, and on that toolbar I have the camera. And I'll just move this up a little bit. We might as well take a snapshot of something relevant. I've got a whole lot of camera tools I can choose from, and I can choose where to send my image. I'm going to put it on the current page. It's going to make a loud click, sorry. All right, and then I can pop back into my flip chart, and there's the image. All right, so this is how I got all of these little images of tools into the page, or onto the page rather. All right, so this idea ticks an incidentals box. Incidentally, the students are using peripherals as well as learning how to make, how to take data, in this case an image, and transfer it from one device to another. Alternatively, you could have the students draw an image of their favourite toy. Okay, they might do this on paper. You could then scan that, and it could be added to the flip chart page using your desktop camera tool in the same way we just did for the photos. That might sound like a lot of double handling or hassle, but again, think about the process the kids are going through, taking data or information in one form, i.e. a drawing, and transferring that to another form using digital technologies. There's a lot of incidental learning going on there. So whilst it might be time consuming and a hassle on the surface for you as a teacher, look at the learning for them that's there, that's relevant to your digital curriculum. Another option for drawing the toy would be to have the students draw it straight into the flip chart page with a pen tool, okay, which is what I did here. This is a lovely soccer ball. The obvious drawback here would be time or class management issues. If you have an active panel touch or an active board touch interactive whiteboard, then you will have 10 points of touch with the pen tool in ActivInspire. So potentially, if they could all fit around the board or the panel, 10 students could be drawing at the same time. So then time wouldn't necessarily be such an issue for you. Moving along, sound bites. Now, in your software, I'm going into my toolbox. I like to use my toolbox on my toolbar here. You can also find your tools in your main menu here. And of course, because these tabs across the top are the same as your main menu tools, tabs rather, you also have tools available to you up here. So tools, more tools, there is a sound recorder. Now, in order to be able to record the sound, you either need your computer or your laptop to have an inbuilt microphone, or you would need to plug in an external microphone. Make sure your microphone settings are turned on and not muted as well if you're having trouble with hearing sounds. It's very easy to use the sound recorder. You simply press the red button to start. You talk, hello, 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 hello. I'll just quickly move this. And you push stop, and it places the soundbite on the page there for you. Let's turn that down before we don't need to hear all of that. Okay, so you've got a great tool there. And the idea here is that with that tool, you can then record both the students' questions that they're posing and the answers, and that's one way you can collect the data. I like this idea. It's simple, and it's a great way to reinforce to the students that data comes in many forms. All right. Along that same theme, you could use a Vimeo or a Flip video or another video recording device to film students doing surveys. So you could do an interview, in other words. And then you could add this to your flip chart page. So to add a video to your flip chart page, you would go to your main menu, Insert, Link to File, go out to your desktop and find your video. And I do apologise, I don't have any on this particular computer, but when you find one, you click on it and you say Open. You've got a range of options for how you would like that video to appear on your screen. You could have it as a line of text. You could have it as an image icon, so there'll be a little image like this of a movie file or something. I like the placeholder, which is where you can see here what it is. And of course, because it's a video, you're able to use the camera tool to take photos off the live or the playing video if you wish. So I'll just play this and show you what I mean. Okay, now you may have noticed that I have cheated because I didn't have a video on my device. What I actually did was I went to YouTube and found a video of students interviewing each other just so I could have something to put in this place. Now, this is perhaps not relevant to what we're doing, but I'm going to go off on a tiny tangent and tell you how to embed an HTML link. So if you have a video from YouTube that you want to place into your flip chart page like this, you need to go underneath the video on YouTube to the share button or the share option. When you click on that, you will have an option for embed. If you look underneath there, there will be an embed code, and you need to highlight all of that if it's not already highlighted. You need to copy that code, and then you follow a similar process. You come to your main menu in Inspire, you click on Insert, Link, and at the bottom, Embedded HTML. Okay, then you would paste your code, your embed code from YouTube here. There's one important step. Now, YouTube changed their coding, and somewhere in that coding there will be the HTTPS colon / colon maybe. Take the S out of that, HTTPS, take the S off, all right? If you do not, what will happen is this box here will stay white. Okay, the frame that the video plays in just stays white and there's nothing in there to play. As soon as you take that S out, your problems are all solved. All right, it was just a slight change in coding. And you can change the size of the screen that it plays in. I have simply shrunk that down to fit how I wanted it to fit on the screen there. All right, back from the tangent. We're going to move on. All right, so here I have taken photos of the students' toys, and we've now taken them off the digital camera. We've used the desktop camera tool there to snapshot the photos into Inspire. And some of you might be thinking, well, why wouldn't I just drag them straight off my camera? The reason is that they are very large files often, and there's only so many that you can fit in there before your flip chart page has too much information on it and your flip chart will crash. So by taking a photo of the photo, it makes a very small file so that you can stack up potentially thousands of little images on your page and you're not going to crash any software, all right? So the idea here is a very, very simple one. All right, the students are going to sort the data or collate their data. They're going to put it into groups, okay? So unfortunately, I haven't muddled up these images at all. Perhaps it's fortunate for me, it's going to be a bit quicker. All right, so the kids are grouping their different kinds of toys. I might resize those a little bit. All right, just to make sure they all fit. And of course, if we want to make that clearer, very simply we can take the pen tool and make it very obvious that those toys belong to the same category. Okay, whoops, went off the page there. Apologise, my mouse skills are not the best. All right, so it's a nice, easy and collaborative task. Not everything has to be rocket science, and remember, the children are being encouraged to explore the technologies. Simply moving that stuff around the page, resizing it to fit if it's too big or small, there's skills in there that they're learning, not to mention the fact that you've taken the images off the camera and you've transferred them onto your computer and use the desktop camera tool. And yes, I would be using the desktop camera tool with the students. It would be a pointless exercise in many regards if it was you doing all this preparation before the lesson. Okay. Now, on this page, I've got the same toys here, as you can see, and they're just shrunk a little bit. Now, I got these onto this page by copying them off this page. So let me just reset this page. Okay, so while they're all bunched up nicely together, I can select them all. I could then on my keyboard use Control C or Command C if you're on a Mac, or I could right click on these, or I could use my Cheats right click, which is this here, and I can choose copy. I can then go into this page, I can right click, and I can say paste, and all of those will pop on there. So there is a skill that they will know from other software, Word or Paint or something like that, and an easily transferable skill. Perhaps they haven't met that skill before, you've taught them here, now they can transfer that to another software. The other way you've got of taking these images, or anything in fact, from one page of a flip chart to another is by using your page browser. Just scroll down a little bit here, and I highlight, or select rather, the things I want to copy, and I drag them across to the page I want to copy them to. So you can see my cursor has changed as I've dragged it over the image of that page, and you can see now on this page of my flip chart, those images have been placed. Okay, so there are a number of ways you can get the images onto a page. You don't have to always go back and retake the photos over and over again. Right, so without further ado, let's quickly spread these out. All right, I am in fact going to pause the recording while I do this, so I'm not wasting any of your time. Okay, so you can see by dragging those images now into the relevant line of this table here, I have an instant pictograph. Now what I have forgotten to mention is that this table I drew using my shape tool here. So I simply chose shape. I chose the rectangle shape tool to get an outside box for the table. I chose the X at the top here so that it was a hollow shape. I did not want a solid colour behind the shape. And I chose blue here. I will now choose red so that you can see what I mean. And then I simply clicked and dragged, and until I drop that box, I can keep resizing it wherever I would like. I then used the horizontal and the vertical lines to finish making the table in blue that you see there, and then I just added some text to the page here. Now, because I'm trying to keep things nice and quick for us today, I pre-prepared this table. If this was me with a class of students or a group of students, I would be co-constructing this with them. Scaffolding for them, how we set up a table, scaffolding for them, how we find the right tools to help us draw that table, and so on. Okay, because once again, there's a lot of very incidental skills and cross-curricular skills. I mean, that leads straight into maths. We need to draw tables and so forth in our maths books. It's crossover skills that the kids are learning there. Okay. All right, so one final thing I wanted to mention on this page was potentially I could then lead into tally charts. And I might do that by using my pen tool. And because I'm a bit of a stickler for making things look nice, I'm going to make my pen tool draw exactly straight lines. So I'm going to also click on the pen modifier. Now I had to have clicked pen first. You can also make your highlighter do this, by the way. And I'm going to choose a vertical line here. And I will use a black. All right. So now, no matter where I'm moving my pen, as you can see, it's just going to draw a lovely straight line. Okay. And that is just me with my pernickety ways. All right. So I'm drawing one line over top of each of the toys. All right. So one line represents one toy. I won't do it to all of them. You get the meaning. Now, what I'm going to do next is come down on my toolbar to this spray and white bottle here, which is your clear tool, and it lets you remove different elements from your page. So what I've just put onto the page is pen, and pen is an annotation. If I was to click clear annotations, anything written with a pen, so my tally marks here, or this F, which I had to write in by hand because I couldn't find a nice font to do it for me. If I clicked that, they're all going to disappear. Now don't worry, remember you've got undo, so everything always comes back. If I click on clear objects, everything else that is an object on my page, i.e. everything else, will disappear. So now this can lead into a lovely discussion for my students on tallies. And we can say that, you know, when we have big long lines of tallies like this, it's a bit hard to count, especially when they're tightly packed together. So what we're going to do is group them in fives. So it leads nicely into that. I'll just spin this fellow like so. And there we go. Whoops. Let's move him in. Okay, but you get the general idea anyway. I just thought it was a nice way to take that concrete of the toy still, represent it with a tally line, and then we can look at constructing a tally chart from that the next time. Okay, actually going to undo these to there, just in case I want to take a picture of that graph later. Okay. Once again, on this page, for brevity, I have pre-prepared this page, but this is something I would co-construct with the students. Again, I've just set up a graph here. To get the grid on the back of the page, all I did was right-click on my page. I went to Grid Designer. I ticked Visible up in that box. I didn't panic about how complicated and messy this looks. I just used my plus and minus signs to make the squares bigger or smaller as I wanted them. And if you want to change the color, absolutely no problem. Okay. Now, it's no accident that all of these images fit pretty much one square. Okay. This time round, I've taken images that the students have drawn themselves. I've scanned them. We've used the camera tool to get them in, and we've shrunk them down so that they fit here. And just in case it's a little bit hard to tell what some of our drawings are, I've also added a little bit of text for us here today. I'll just move that up there for now. Okay, now obviously we can just use the pen tool to finish off our graph here. And of course we would add a title and label the axes and so forth, which I'm going to skip, but is absolutely essential. And then what I'm going to do is, for each image, I will set drag a copy. So to set drag a copy, I'm going to right-click on that image or click on the image and use your Cheats right-hand click here. And the reason I always show people this is sometimes when you're at the board, you may find it tricky to right-click with the pen on the board. Or if you are using one of the touch boards or touch panels, it might take you a little while to get used to how to right-click. So there's two ways you can right-click. You can hold your finger down on the image and a square or a circle will spin around or appear, and then you remove your finger and you get the right-hand click menu like this show up. Or you can tap two fingers spaced widely apart. So I tend to place my thumb on the object in question and tap my forefinger somewhere else on the panel or the board, and that gets me my right-hand click. But it can take a little bit of getting used to initially, so I like to show people the right-click menu is in that toolbar, and I just have to tap on that to get it, all right? And drag a copy is on that list. There it is, all right? And now you'll notice that my cursor has changed to have a hand with a plus, and that means that I will be able to drag up endless number of that shape. Now, if you're a smartboard user, that's clone on drag for you in your terminology. Okay, now I don't want to have to do this individually because I'm all about making things quick. So I'm going to select all of these objects here and add drag a copy. Then I have to make sure I deselect, otherwise we end up with everyone getting dragged up. All right, now I think there was about 6 or 7 trucks, but all right. Okay, 2 Legos. And I can't remember how many dolls, I'm sorry, but I'm going to put 3, just for argument's sake. All right, so the next step from here could be turning this, once more a pictograph, into a bar graph. Yep. So I can do that in a number of ways. Probably the way I would be most likely to tackle it myself would be to go into my Shapes tool once again, go and choose my rectangle. This time I'm going to choose a color, so I'll choose yellow. This means that the shape will be filled yellow, and I'm going to choose black over on this color palette because that means it will have a black outline. All right, and then I'm going to go over to my graph, and I'm going to start at this corner, and I'm going to click and drag and cover up my pictures with that bar. Then I'll choose a different color, and I'll cover up those 3 pictures with a bar. And then I'll choose a different color, whoops, and so on. Okay, now you might choose, instead of covering the pictures over, you might choose to have hollow rectangle, like I chose to draw my table with, and that way you can see through to those pictures, so that might be a more scaffolded approach for you, or for your students, I should say. Okay, so it's really your preference of how you would want to address that. Alrighty. Now obviously, you don't need to have those images there. You don't need to set drag a copy to drag them up to build a pictograph before you put the bar graphs over. It's just throwing you out ideas for how you might progress towards a bar graph. If your students are already pretty good at or have experienced graphs before, then you might simply start straight away by, you know, reading along and across, along and up, and drawing your bars straight onto the page. Okay, you don't, just suggested ideas for you. All right, on the next page, exactly the same idea here, but this time I'm using the sound bites that the students had recorded. So they stated what their favourite toys were, and we recorded them. So, all right, so they're stacking up their sound bites here to create those bars of the graph, just a different twist on the same kind of idea. All right, now I've got 2 ideas for the next stage of things, which interpreting or analysing the data. So making statements or generalizations about the graphs, for instance. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to take one of our graphs and I'm going to put it onto this page. So I might use this one. It's nice and colourful. Right. What I am going to do is use my camera tool from my toolbox. So I'm not using my desktop tools, I'm using my camera within the ActivInspire software, and there's a great keyboard shortcut there for this. Now again, I apologise that I haven't labelled my axes properly or given a title, but you'll just have to imagine they're there. Now I'm saving it to the clipboard, so the memory of my computer. I'm going to go back to my page here, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste. Now I have a tiny bug that's going to make this appear very large, so just bear with me for a second. I apologise. Okay, so there's my graph, and I'm going to pop that on the page because this is the graph that the students are going to be interpreting or analysing. And I've got 2 suggested ways that they could make their statements about the graphs using Inspire. They could either be written statements, or they could be, again, verbally recorded statements using the sound recorder. So because I'm wanting all of the students to make that statement, I could get them to just write on the screen here. I absolutely could. But this is kind of a training session. I'm wanting to give you some ideas in the tricks of the software, and I'm also wanting to give you some ideas for how you can make things just that little bit cooler for the kids. So what we're going to do is we're going to make post-it notes, an endless supply of post-it notes. So over here in my shape tool, this time I'm grabbing the square. I'm going to grab a really skinny black outline and a lovely, let's make it more post-it note yellow, a lovely shoe browser, a lovely square post-it note there. Okay, now with my mouse cursor again so that I can select this shape, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that into a container that will contain the student's writing. So just like if I wrote on a sticky note and I moved the sticky note, the writing doesn't fall off it onto the floor, the writing moves with the sticky note. So that's what I want the writing to do on my flip chart page. I don't want it to be left behind. So I've selected my shape. I'm going up to the property browser, which is this white page looking icon here. And I'll just roll a few of these up. I'm looking for the heading that says container. And I can ignore all of it, but the top one, can contain, and at the moment it's set to nothing by default. I want that to say anything. And that means that from now on, that will contain anything I put on it. Now there are some rules. The container has to be underneath the things I want to put in it. In other words, it's straightforward. I can't write on a table, put a post-it note on top of that writing and expect that writing to move with my post-it note because I haven't written on the post-it note. I have to be writing on the post-it note. So we're talking about layers here within the software, all right? So the container or my post-it note has to be underneath things, which is why I've put it on the page first, okay? I also want to set drag a copy. So remember, I'm just going to right click and choose drag a copy from that list, and now I've got that little icon. So now I have got loads of post-it notes that will contain the students' written statements, or, there we go, it moves around, or their recorded statements. So they might be, let me come in here and grab my sound recorder. They might have made a statement. Let's see the most obvious one. Trucks were the most popular toy. There we go, there's my sound bite. I can pop that onto my post-it note. Okay, and move it around. I could put my name on there too, and so on. Now, just to show you, whatever you're wanting to move around with the post-it note has to stay inside the post-it note. You can see here that that piece of writing was just a little bit outside. If I dragged that in, it would then move. All right, and the outside being these white bubbles. So if you've used a triangle shape, you'll find that the bubbles still make a square, and as long as the writing's inside those bubbles, you're good to go. So a few ideas there for analysing or interpreting the data. I mean, obviously the guts of that is you're wanting them to be making statements about graphs, and of course you don't have to make post-it notes to do that. The idea is that then you can save this page, and not only do you have a record of their findings for reference with your students at a later date, you've also got it when it comes to report writing or parent interviews or any other time you might need to lay your hands on that data. Okay. Now, whilst these ideas I've shown you could be adapted for or used with years 3 and 4, they were more to do with the younger children. So let's have a look at some ideas for our years 3 to 4 age bands. Okay, one of the digital technology curriculum learning objectives suggests that students find data sets on the internet. So posing questions and collecting data. I've given you a few web links here. Now remember, you get this flip chart. There'll be a link to this flip chart sent, I think, with the thank you emails. And if not, you should be able to find it. It is on Promethean Planet. You can see the name of my flip chart is here. Digital Technologies Curriculum Year 0 to 4 is what that stands for. But the title I've called the resource is the title of our webinar. I always try and keep things nice and simple. All right, so if we click on any of these, they'll open to a website. So Census for Schools, by the way, is Australia and New Zealand have their own site. This particular one is the Bureau of Meteorology. One of the content descriptors gave weather as an example, collecting data on weather. So here would be a great website to go to. It is a little bit grown up looking almost. So Bureau of Statistics, I was a little bit more pleased that they had a more educational focused area of their website so that you can go to, and there are some great games and apps, incidentally, by the way, on statistics, and there some interactive games. So on this page, that's what that side is, and this side is where we're getting into the fun stuff. Okay, so Learner Response Systems, or LRS, as they're abbreviated to, and the ClassFlow plugin. Now, a lot of schools across Australia and New Zealand have sets of our ActiVotes, usually these ones, okay, and Active Expressions, again, usually these ones. These are our more modern ones. I know we do have these in Australia, I think some in New Zealand. I'm not sure if we've ever had this version of votes in this part of the world. They work exactly the same. They've just put the colours on for the pre-readers to identify instead of using the letters. So what are learner response systems? Well, they're little handheld devices that allow the teacher to poll the students or ask the students questions, and the students can select an option or type in an answer on the little keypads, and the data is gathered and collated on the spot, and we're going to have a look at this very shortly. I will run a webinar later in the year on learner response systems, so if you do have some floating around your school and you're thinking after this, oh, that might be quite good, I'll dig those out and have a go at using them, fantastic. Watch this space for another webinar on getting up and running with things like that. Before we go into the examples on the learner response devices, we also have evolved a software called ClassFlow, which is a cloud-based software. And once again, I'm not going into ClassFlow today. We're focusing just on ActivInspire today, but from probably term 3, beginning of term 3 onwards, keep a watch out for webinars on ClassFlow because they'll be coming thick and fast, I think. All right, but in the interim, what we do have in ActivInspire is a ClassFlow Connect button up the top. You might have seen that before and wondered what that's all about. What it is, it allows you to use tablet devices like iPads or Samsung Galaxies or whatever it is that you've got, and you can connect those devices to your ActivInspire flipchart lesson, and you can then use the devices just like you would use your Active Expressions or your ActiVotes to poll the students. Actually, only like the Active Expressions to poll the students. So we'll have a look at that now. I'm going to click on my ClassFlow Connect button. It will open me a box where I need to sign in to ClassFlow. Excuse me while I just remember what everything is. All right. Okay, so you do need to be a member of ClassFlow, but if you notice in that left-hand box while I was typing, it's free to join ClassFlow. It's free to sign up to ClassFlow. It's free to use ClassFlow. It's a very exciting software, which I'm not going to go into today. but it's well worth a little investigation if you haven't already. Okay, so now that I'm signed in, I have a class code. So on my iPad, which I have handy, I'm going to go to this website in the browser. When we first got ClassFlow, we had apps for the different types of tablets, so your Windows tablets, your Android tablets, or your Apple tablets, your iPads, but it was a bit of a nightmare to keep up with the App Store updates, so we scrapped it, and we found it works better for the students to just use a web browser. So again, whilst I'm talking about tablets here, in theory, if you've got classroom computers or the kids have got laptops, they can be using those as well, okay, as long as they've got a web browser and it's an up-to-date web browser. Now, I've gone to the website, I put in my class code Q6WH4, and I say join class. Now watch up here. Very soon, oh, I've got to put my name in, apologies. Okay, very soon, I will get a little green 1 appear in this box. There it is. One student is connected, and in my registration panel here, I can see that that student is Claire. Okay, done. If I were to pop over to my voting browser now, I can see my students here listed. Okay, now just be aware it has to be done under the Active Expressions tab here. This is not compatible with ActiVote. I learnt the hard way. Only Active Expressions. Okay, and the other thing to note at the moment, you can't pre-prepare the questions as we're about to do on another page. It has to be only done with the ad hoc wheel here, the Express poll. Okay, so if I was to ask my students a question now, just for argument's sake, I make this A, this B, and this C, and I'm asking them which is their preference. I will go to multi-choice question, A to C, they can only pick one, and I didn't click hard enough. Oh yes, I did. Okay. I'm just going to pin this out. When Claire has answered, on her screen, she gets a snapshot of the page and then the options to choose. She's choosing B and she submits it. When she's submitted her answer, her name's ticked off here and the data comes straight onto the page here. All right, we're going to go into questioning and polling a little bit on the next page. But I wanted to show you this because if you've got a set of iPads in your classroom, you can make use of the polling function in Inspire. You no longer just couldn't do it with this, with the learner response systems. All right, so on this page I already have a preset question, and I can tell that because I have a green triangle play button here that's lit up. On other pages, it's not lit up, all right? So there's a question already on there. I'm going to right-click on my page. This is where I can insert a question, incidentally, or remove a question. I could also have gone to my main menu and clicked Edit, and somewhere on here, Edit Questions on Current Page, okay? Any one of those, oh, I don't want to click Remove, however, will get me to the Question Master, or Question Manager, rather, and you can see here I've already pre-set up this question. I've chosen multi-choice. There's lots of different kinds of question I could have. Here are the options I've given the students, and the final thing I'm going to do is down at the bottom, I would like to use one of the template pages, and I want it to be this one. I'm going to say apply, and you can see underneath my page is turned now to look like that. There's all of the questioning information displayed on the page for me. So I'm also going to just swap to active votes because that's what I've actually got sitting next to me to use. All right, so they are these little things. Active expressions are these bigger ones with keypad. Active votes have less options for the types of questions you can ask. You can ask a true or false, a yes, no or maybe, or a multi-choice. That's sort of your limit with those. And I'd better just plug in my little hub so that they work. Okay, so I'm going to now start a question by pressing on that green play button. Let me try that one more time. Okay, so let me just, okay, you saw that the kids' names were highlighting up in yellow as they answered, and here are their results instantly on the page. Now, they come up by default in the last graph that you used, or horizontal bar graph is the original default, I believe. But you can have any number of different graphs. Yeah. And what's more, you can also paste those graphs onto the page. So I'm going to, oops, paste those. I'm also going to shrink them both a little bit. Oops. Oh, it's a bit odd. Must have been selecting a box behind it so that I can see them side by side. And you saw that at just a click of a button, I had the two different kinds of graphs, so I can ask the students to be analysing the data in the different graphs. Okay, same data represented in different ways. In addition to this, what I can do is I have the results browser. So I've come into my browser, I'm in my voting browser, which is this last icon here, and I've got the results browser here. I can export these results to Excel. Now what I'm going to do is just reset my page to how I had it initially, because I've got a pre-prepared flip chart here. So the students have actually answered all of these questions. Now, provided I save the flip chart that the students have done the voting on, I have access to those results, which you'll see demonstrated here. So I opened a flip chart I'd saved previously, and I can bring up those results. I just click on the questions or the pages, the questions there, and I can view any of the results done in the last lesson, for example. And if I choose Export to Excel, oops, you can tell I've done a pre-run of this, then it exports that data to Excel. What a fantastic way to bring in another type of software into the lesson so easily. I didn't have to input any of this data by typing it. It's all done at the touch of that one Export to Excel button. And down the bottom, the tabs, we've got the overall summary. We can look at the results by question. We can look at the results by student. And there is a question page there at the end with the question and the options that they were given. So there's a lot of scope there for covering off both mathematics and the digital technology curriculum learning outcomes. And so everyone, that brings the first half of our examples to a close. So hopefully in there was something that struck a chord. As usual, if you have any questions or would like help with anything, please don't hesitate to give us a call. There are, drop us a line. There are our email addresses, and we're more than happy to give you a call and talk about anything you might need. Okay, keep a watch out for the second recording, which is where we'll be looking at the digital curriculum examples for art and writing. Bye, everyone.